Hello friends, today I have a super special Halloween collab for you. Mr. Super Customs and I kept finding that we were accidentally making the same dolls over and over, and we realised we must have some kind of psychic connection. So I asked him if he fancied doing a collab where we start with the same brief and see what we both come up with. Mason suggested doing Victorian inspired vampires, which I was on board with immediately. And then I asked if he thought it'd be cool if we used the same base, and he suggested Abby. With the theme being Victorian-ish vampires, I knew that I wanted to do Nadja from What We Do in the Shadows. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share, and once you're done with my video, please go over and check out Mr. Super Customs. I love Abby, but I'm never really sure what to do with her. Her body is completely covered in glitter, and the only way to get this off is sanding. I tried with non-acetone nail polish remover and it did absolutely nothing. As usual, I'm using a hairdryer to heat the vinyl of her head to make it easier to get off the body and make sure that I don't break the neck peg. I failed! Fairykin had a video tutorial of how to fix a neck peg, which I'm following for this. I used my needle nose pliers to get that neck peg out of the head. I'm checking the damage here. I'm taking away that pin that holds the neck peg in place usually. This is what's broken. I use calipers to check the size of drill bits. These don't have any writing on, and this is the best way I've found. I love my calipers, they're a great buy. And then I'm making a hole the same diameter as my wire in the neck of the doll. Putting that neck peg back in, followed by a piece of steel wire. This is the strongest wire that I have. Using epoxy glue, I'm filling that crack in the neck, which is what failed when I pulled the head off. And then adding glue to the edges of those wire and then pulling it through back into the doll's neck to make sure that the inside of that hole is covered with glue. When I sanded down her body, I also sanded down these pieces of wire so it was flush. Then I'm removing the hair from the head by scraping the inside of the head with a screwdriver and then using those needle nose pliers to pull the glue and the hair out from the neck hole. To remove the factory paint, I'm using 100% acetone from my massive bottle and just wiping that away. You can use acetone on the hands to remove that glitter. I don't want to try it on the body. I know that acetone melts doll bodies, so I'm going to sand that in front of the TV. Nadja in the show has a really expressive face and she often sneers, so I really wanted to give my doll a sneery face. I'm using a little bit of epoxy sculpt and blending that onto the top lip, just on one side, to kind of change the shape of her mouth. Using my airbrush, I changed the colour of her face. I went for a really pale sallow colour because I thought it looked more dead. I used hot glue to temporarily glue her arms to skewers to make it easier to hold while I'm airbrushing. I'm looking at reference while I'm doing the face up. Because this isn't a natural human head mould, and it's also obviously not a head mould of the actress, I'm not going to be able to get it to look exactly like her, but I'm hoping to kind of get a flavour. I'm starting by sketching in her features. I want to have that one vampire tooth showing in her sneer. Natasha Dimitriou, who plays Nadja, has greenish eyes, I think. I was looking at quite a lot of reference of the actress. It's so weird when you see interviews of Natasha, because she's a very well-spoken British person, but Nadja is such a character. She has this really strong European accent and this like really characteristic way of speaking. She makes me laugh a lot. Like she blows me away. I love the show, but Nadja, what a character. So I'm sketching the eyes in green. She's gonna have eyeshadow as well. I don't often do makeup looks on my dolls. One of the makeup looks that Nadja in the show wears quite a lot is like a green glittery eyeshadow, which is super pretty. So I wanted to do that, and I shadowed around her eyes quite a lot. So smoky with that glittery green eyeshadow. Her eyebrows aren't even going to be visible, but I'm doing my best because I just need some practice on eyebrows. I'm doing the contour to follow kind of the shape of Tasha Dimitriou's face to try and make it look more like her. To add that eyeshadow, I'm using green mica powder. And then realised it wasn't going to show up if I didn't put a base under it, so I gave it some watercolour pencil under there. I really, really hated this face up at the beginning, and I was like questioning all of my decisions. I've not sculpted on a doll's face before, I think, because I find it quite difficult to get a good blend with epoxy sculpt. But I didn't think that I'd be able to get that sneering look without it, and it was really, really important to me that my doll had that sneering look, because that's what I think of when I think of Nadja, or her hissing face, and her hissing face is fantastic. Like, I want to be more like Nadja. She says no so forcefully, and then like if other characters try and push her, she'll like push back. She's such a cool, like, badass woman, and I see quite a lot of myself in her, which is kind of worrying because she's a proper weirdo. Nadja often wears a red lip, which I love, but not usually with her green eyeshadow. She wears a more nude colour and it looks quite flat. This is not something that I normally do. I don't usually draw dolls with lipstick. So I started with pencil and then later added quite a lot of watercolour. With the green eyeshadow, she wears a winged eyeliner. What we do in the shadows is like one of the most comforting things I watch. I think I must have seen it, I want to see it at least 30 times. The movie has one of the absolute best one-liners I've ever heard in my entire life about a sandwich. If you know, you know. And when I first saw the TV series, I didn't like it that much. It is quite different to the movie. The movie's a lot more awkward and dry, and the TV show's a bit more, it's still quite dry, but it's kind of more normal humour. But the actors are all fantastic. I've loved Matt Berry forever. I don't know any Brit that doesn't love Matt Berry. Natasha Dimitriou is a British comedian. I don't remember seeing her, but I know she's been in shows that I like. And then Nandor, I don't think I've seen him in anything. He's British as well, so the three vampires are British. And then Colin Robinson, the emotional vampire. I thought that was such an interesting touch in the TV show. And then Guillermo the Familiar is so cool. And in the third season, he's like even cooler. Super impressed. I decided not to add eyelashes to this face up, which I did go back and forth. I tried them drawn, I didn't like them. I tried holding up like 3D lashes and didn't like them, so I decided just to go with a winged liner, and I really like how it looks actually. I think it's just enough. By using that watercolour pencil wet, it's giving me like a really even coverage over her lips, which is making it look like overdrawn lipstick, which is how Nadja wears her lipstick. I added some metallic watercolour to her eyebrows and to her irises for kind of a highlight, and then Jackie O, the darling human that she is, sent me some Pearl X pigments. So I'm using Interference Gold, Micro Pearl and Macro Pearl in like first a diamond and then a triangle in the centre of her face. I feel like this helps with dimension. I find that if you put too much mica, then it can often flatten the doll's face. I'm doing tiny catch lights here. Recently I've been enjoying doing small catch lights, so I'm going to keep doing it. I'm using a combination of viscose and chunky yarn. Apparently if you leave this yarn on your hot glue gun, it will bleach, bizarrely, in order to get the texture that I want. I actually learnt this way of prepping hair from Mr. Super Customs, and I talk a bit more about it in my cottagecore fawn doll. Usually, and I think it depends on the brand to be honest, you can pull it out and it will end up wavy, and Nadja's hair was wavy, right? So I thought this would be a super easy way to do her hair, but it just came out a bit Hermione Granger in the books, which is not what I'm going for. With this prep method you get longer yarn fibres, which is why I decided yarn. My viscose is kind of limited in length, so I decided I'm going to straighten it and then I have an idea on how to wave it later. I got the Bear Hugs pack of viscose from Viscose Heaven, and it had a couple of different browns, so I'm just checking which brown I think is the closest match to this yarn, and I decided to go with chocolate. It's darker but on a similar tone, and I feel like it will be able to give me kind of like a balayage look. Straightened all of this fibre. I'm cutting the end so that I have kind of a flat end to work with, and then gluing it around the head the same way I would glue a wig, but just straight to her head. I said in my last video, I'm trying to do things that bring me joy, and rerouting yarn does not bring me joy. This is a lot faster and I think it gives good results anyway. The yarn gives me good length, but I don't like the way that yarn fringes can look. They can look quite blunt and sticky outy. Viscose is so good for short hairstyles, so I'm going to use viscose in the front of her hairstyle. The difference in colour is really obvious here, but it blends out, don't worry. Once I've gone around the head quite a few times with the yarn for length, I'm then adding the viscose on top. So the viscose fibres are quite a lot shorter. I know that longer viscose fibres exist, I just don't know where to get them, so if anybody has any idea, please let me. I'm loving working with the viscose. So this is going to give her like a layered kind of balayage look-ish. It looks so rich and pretty here. My glued partings on either wigs or doll heads isn't great, so I am actually going to reroute this top part. I've never found it necessary to open holes before rerouting. This is a needle that I cut myself. I've not tried proper reroute needles before. I think this gives a good effect, so it's worth doing, and it probably took me about an hour to reroute that part rather than doing the whole reroute, which will take me about 5 and is pretty hard on my hands. And then because we've only rerouted that little bit, we don't need to use as much glue, so it dries a lot quicker. I'm brushing that out, and some yarn is going to come with it. I tend to overdo the hair a little bit, so this isn't the worst thing. To cut her fringe, I'm starting with a razor. Even though it is a blunt fringe, I think that if you just cut it blunt, it starts sticking out and looking quite weird. This is viscose, so you probably could get away with it. Viscose is so good short. It really behaves itself. So first I'm kind of roughly getting the shape of her fringe with the razor, and then I'm cutting it with my tiny super sharp embroidery scissors highly recommend. And then I'm cutting into it like this at an angle to kind of feather it out a little bit. I've been using makeup brushes in doll craft for ages, and realised that this is a super good use of a spoolie. So my idea to get this wave is to braid her hair, because it is a wave, it's not a curl, and then set it. I know that yarn and viscose like heat to set, and water doesn't hurt it, so I decided to use my steamer. And then I steamed her braids. Be careful of your fingers if you do that. And then using the tip of my scissors, I'm undoing those braids and then breaking those waves up a little bit more with my fingers. I cut the ends off of the bottom just to kind of even it up and make sure she's got no stragglies. So onto the clothes. I made a pattern for a leg of mutton sleeve kind of shirt waist, I guess. I need to make this first so that I can pattern the overdress over the top of it. Nadja wears a cravat in the episode that I am referencing. Again, it's a brocade. I don't have brocade, so I decided to layer lace on top of a mustardy gold satin, which I'm sewing directly to her shirt. I added a ruffle around her collar. Nadja has a statement necklace over the top of the cravat, and I had these jewels from the Swan Lake project that I did, and I thought they would work really well. I didn't have brocade, so I decided to layer fabrics to get the look I was hoping for. I have wide lace, but it's not wide enough or long enough to make the skirt, so what I'm going to do is piece these bits of lace together, and as costubers always say, piecing is period, so I'm being pretty Victorian by doing this. The bodice has got the same fabrics, and I'm completely lining that to make sure that the top of the bodice has a good shape, and then I'm turning that out and kind of like stitching the edges together a little bit because it was not laying flat and I didn't want to top stitch it. And then I'm sewing the skirt to the bodice, putting a lot of the volume of the skirt in the back. The skirt's kind of a half circle skirt, but with a little bit more length at the back to look a bit like a Victorian walking skirt. For the closures for the dress, I decided to use hook and eye. Nadja wears a turban in the episode Ghosts, that's the one that I'm referencing. So I'm using some polymorph plastic to make kind of the cap part. This becomes malleable in hot water. I'm trying to get it really thin. This is quite solid once it's cooled down, but if it's quite thin around the edges, it'll definitely pop on and off her head. I'm tidying up the edges of the cap with some scissors, and then I'm covering it with stretch velvet. I just glued it to kind of the outside and the inside rim from the back first and then the sides. It's a square piece, so it's going to give me a bit of extra volume on the sides, which then I can kind of pleat to make it look like it's a real turban, not a piece of plastic. For For the knot, I'm totally faking it. I'm creating kind of like a long half moon, a half oval, with gold on one side and the black velvet on the other. I'm bagging that out. And then I kind of twist it into a shape that I like, and then sewing that to the front of the turban. Lex of Stitchwick Creations gave me this feather trim ages ago. I want to say nearly a year ago, and I've just had it in my stash and it was perfect for this application. These are the same boots that I used for my cottagecore doll. I don't think they make them anymore, which is a shame because they're just perfect for like a Victorian style. I'm giving them 2 coats of brown acrylic, and then I'm dry brushing the texture with a redder brown. Then I'm picking out the eyelets with gold, and then using a watered down black acrylic to further deepen the shadows in the sculpt. Lady Dynamite Creates also did a Nadja doll recently. Go check it out, it's so beautiful. And when I saw it, I slid straight into her DMs. I was like, mate, I'm also doing a Nadja doll. Apparently all doll artists share one brain. And she did some really cool rings, so I'm just copying exactly what she did. She used some jump rings. I don't have jump rings, so I'm just making some. And then gluing some gems to them. Nadja also tends to have her nails painted. I went for kind of a deepish red. I'm using Vallejo and giving that 2 coats with a tiny brush and much patience. And then topping that with Sculpey Gloss Glaze. I did 2 coats to try and make it extra shiny. Nadja sometimes wears some silver teardrop earrings, and I just happen to have bought these for a different project. I'm adding those to a pin and then gluing a gem on the head of the pin. In the episode that I'm referencing, Nadja summons her dead soul from the beyond and then puts it in a doll. So I decided to make Nadja's Nadja doll. Nadja doll's Nadja doll? I don't know. Anyway, I find this tiny doll with pretty good articulation. I'm impressed. She was like £1.50. I'm taking her hair off and then making a pattern for her clothes and cutting my finger with a pair of scissors. What is wrong with me? A pair of scissors. I'm faking it a bit with this doll, so it's a very simple pattern for her top. I'm painting both her legs and her arms to fake clothes a little bit, and I glued the sleeves of her shirt to her elbows to help give me a puff around the shoulders. I made a tiny little half circle skirt. I've added a bow to her neck as well. She was so fiddly, she's so tiny. And I added one of those gems to her bow as well. I'm filling the head with glue now, which is going to help us a little bit later when we add her hair. And then I'm going to give this tiny little doll a tiny little face up. She's literally like the size of my thumbnail. What am I doing? Couldn't be bothered to get my airbrush out again, so I'm making her a lot paler with pan pastels and then doing this tiny face up. I'm looking at Nadja's Nadja doll. Her eyes are really big and half moon shaped. Because this doll is so tiny, I'm not gonna add much detail. The smaller something is, the more details you need to leave out. If you keep them in, it ends up looking mushy and jumbled. The head is super hard, so it took all the colours well and it was easy to blend them. I only did 2 layers on this face up, and I completely covered her face in Interference Gold Pearl-X powder. I don't normally cover a doll face in Pearl-X powder because it diffuses all the features and makes the face look a lot flatter. But this doll I do want to look like a doll. I don't want her to look realistic. So this mica is going to really help that. I couldn't even get my camera to focus on her, she's so tiny. I'm using more viscose for her hair. Nadja's signature hairdo is like half up but with space buns, and I didn't want to do that because Lady Dynamite already did that, which is why I did the turban on Big Nadja, but on this one I am doing space buns. So to make the buns I'm just gluing a bit of hair to a bit of wire. I opened holes in the head with a hand drill before making those. And then in the same way I did Big Nadja, I'm gluing the viscose. I decided to use black hair for the doll because I don't want her to get completely lost in Nadja's arms. I tried to work with texture a bit with the outfit as well to try and make sure that there's some differentiation. With this doll I am just blunt cutting her fringe. I'm really impressed that this fringe laid down as well, to be fair. And then the same way that I curled Nadja's hair, I'm just braiding that, and then I used a bit of water and a hairdryer actually to try and set that curl. Her hands and her face aren't the same colour, so I'm grabbing Pale Flesh from Vallejo and painting her hands to match her face. And then I put her head back on. After the BTS doll from last time, this was an actual dream. She is the tiniest thing I've ever seen. I am so proud of her. She's so cute. Yes, this will do nicely. And then I put her back together. Months and months ago I made this kind of armchair that I thought she'd look super cool photographed in, and then I decided maybe I should make kind of like a room for her to be photographed in, and then I got really carried away and spent 10 days making this diorama. So how do you think I did? I'm obsessed with her, I love her so much, and I'm so proud of the diorama. It took a lot of work, and I had some help from a local makerspace on how to wire all the LEDs, so it's totally light up. Really, really proud of it. A lot of work, but I think it's worth it. I want to do dioramas for all of my dolls now. I just think it takes the whole thing to another level, but it's pretty expensive doing them, so I can't really afford the money or the time at the moment, but maybe in the future. So don't forget to check out Mr. Super Customs, like, subscribe, comment, share. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all my patrons. If you want to become a patron, then the link is down below, with an extra special thanks to Camilla. Thank you all so much for your support. The next doll is another accidental same doll as Mr. Super Customs. I hope you love her. Thanks for checking out my video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.